It's Tuesday, April 4. In the headlines, farmers urged to register on Alex system. In business news, shared services across the public sector seeking to increase efficiency. Regionally, in Barbados, technology is being used to protect children against child abuse. On the international scene, allegedly, New York charges only the tip of the iceberg in Donald Trump's legal woes. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. April is Farmers' Month, and farmers are being urged to register with the Agri-Linkages Exchange platform, Alex. Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, Pernell Charles Jr., made the call at the Farmers' Month launch on Friday. Alex is Jamaica's first farmer-focused product delivery system, which was designed to connect small farmers directly with buyers within tourism. Minister Charles says the system has proven to be successful for the industry. Since the start of the year, 490 farmers have earned approximately $108 million in revenue via the Alex platform. In 2022, produce worth over $330 million was sold through the system, benefiting 1,733 farmers and 671 buyers registered on the platform. The minister also praised farmers, fishers, and industry partners for their contribution over the years that have positively impacted the agriculture sector's growth. Activities for the month include Jamaica 4-H Club's Parish Achievement Days on April 4 and April 5, St. Mary and Montpelier agricultural shows on April 10, the launch of predial larceny watch groups on April 13 and April 20, and the St. Anne Agriculture Show on April 28. Jamaica's anti-money laundering and combating financing of terrorism framework is set to become more effective with the passing of the Senate's Companies Act. Leader of government business in the Senate, Minister Kamina Johnson-Smith, piloted the bill through its stages in the Upper House on Friday. The amendments are being enacted to stave off the threat the country faces of being blacklisted by the Global Money Laundering and Terrorist Financing Watchdog, Financial Action Task Force, FATF, if it fails to beef up these guardrails to meet international obligations.
We are in imminent danger of being blacklisted by the FATF, and this is a status that would seriously affect our ability to do business. It would affect not only government, it would affect business, it would affect individuals. Because what it would do is change the level of risk that countries and businesses outside of Jamaica view doing business with Jamaica and Jamaicans. It would say that our systems are not sufficiently robust in terms of their prevention of anti-money laundering and the financing of terrorism.
The country was put under increased monitoring in February 2020, with 40 action items based on FATF recommendations. Up to October, Jamaica was largely compliant with 27 of these recommendations. Minister Johnson-Smith says the amendments will address Recommendation 24 on transparency and beneficial ownership of legal persons, in which Jamaicans are partially compliant.
In 2017, we did amend the Companies Act to introduce the element of providing information regarding beneficial owners. But it was assessed and determined that those amendments did not go far enough, primarily due to the following deficiencies which we seek to address today. One, that not all legal persons are required to maintain current and accurate information on directors, shareholders, and beneficial owners. Two, there is no active monitoring conducted by competent authorities to ensure that basic beneficial ownership information is current for all legal persons and arrangements, so that competent authorities now cannot be certain that the information provided, even though that requirement is there, they can't be certain that the information is accurate and up to date. And three, there are no appropriate provisions to ensure that effective, proportionate, and dissuasive sanctions are applied against companies who do not comply with the filing and record-keeping requirements or obligations to update beneficial ownership information. So again, The requirements are there, but they have no guardrails and no penalties to ensure that they are enforced.
Pointing out that Jamaica had lost time due to the COVID-19 pandemic, she said that after being referred to the FATF Heightened Monitoring Program and placed there, significant progress has been made, but the country still has not attained a satisfactory level in its AML CFT framework.
Imagine you're trying to use your credit card on Amazon or on another site in order to purchase something which you cannot obtain here, and being told that your credit card is not recognized because it is a Jamaican credit card. That is the level to which we would be placing our country at risk.
The Financial Action Task Force, also known by its French name Groupe d'Action Financière, is an intergovernmental organization founded in 1989 on the initiative of the G7 to develop policies to combat money laundering and to maintain certain interests. In 2001, its mandate was expanded to include terrorism financing. In the following Living Healthy report, we talk about the flu. Influenza, also known as flu, is a contagious respiratory illness caused by influenza viruses. It can cause mild to severe illness and at times can lead to death. People at high risk of developing flu complications include young children under age 2, adults older than age 65, residents of nursing homes and other long-term care facilities, people who are pregnant or plan to be pregnant during flu season, people with weakened immune systems. We hear more from the World Health Organization's Dr. Sylvie Brand.
Speak to us, please, Sylvie, about this spike in respiratory diseases that we are seeing and the reasons for it.
Indeed, we are seeing a spike in respiratory viruses, all kinds of viruses, COVID-19, influenza, RSV, and this is not a surprise. We always see an increase in respiratory diseases in winter time for the northern hemisphere. Why? Firstly, because most of the 175 types of circulating respiratory viruses prefer cold and humid weather. Most of them produce mild disease, but some of them, like COVID-19, influenza or RSV, can produce severe disease, leading to hospitalization and even death. Secondly, when the weather is cold or humid, people tend to gather indoor in less ventilated spaces and thus are more exposed to infection. However, this year is a bit special. We are seeing more respiratory disease than usual. We think that this increase is due to at least two factors. In the past 3 years, people were applying personal protective measures like masks, washing hands, less gatherings. But this year, in many countries, most of these preventive measures are not applied anymore. In addition, people have probably lost some of their immunity against respiratory viruses in general, given the low circulation of respiratory viruses in the past years, thanks to the protective measure.
Sylvie, talk to us about the influenza virus and how the vaccine combats it.
There are many influenza viruses circulating. We know at least 3 big families, A, H1N1, A, H3N2, and B viruses. What is important to know is that these viruses evolve constantly. As they multiply in human cells, viruses are changing. This is like having a parent virus, making many children, and then having many grandchildren and many great-grandchildren. The influenza vaccine, it's like a picture of the virus, a picture of the enemy that is shown to our internal defenses, the antibodies. When the antibodies have seen the picture of the virus, they can recognize it. So when the virus enters the body, the antibody can push it out. This is how the influenza vaccine works. However, because of the constant evolution of the virus, we need to update the influenza vaccine composition regularly so that the picture of the enemy that is shown to the antibodies is not the picture of the parent virus that was circulating last year, but the picture of the great grandchild viruses that are circulating this year.
Sylvie, speak to us about how WHO tracks the influenza virus across the world and how is the composition of the vaccine decided?
The WHO has a network of laboratories around the world called GISRES, the Global Influenza Surveillance and Response System. This network is composed of more than 150 laboratories in 137 countries. Those laboratories are collecting and monitoring influenza viruses throughout the year. The collected viruses at the national level are then sent regularly to WHO collaborating centers for global assessment. Experts meet regularly to monitor the circulating virus, assess which ones are predominant, and then define which ones should be considered for the vaccine so that the picture of the enemy is the best possible picture to train our antibodies to fight the virus. This represents an enormous amount of work, but many countries in the world are participating in this effort because influenza is an important public health issue and is killing between 200 to 600,000 people every year, which represent nearly 8,000 deaths per week on average. So the influenza vaccine is safe and very effective to protect against severe disease, hospitalization and death. And it is strongly recommended for people at risk of severe disease such as elderly, people with underlying conditions and comorbidities like immunosuppression, diabetes, chronic respiratory and cardiac diseases, and so on. Influenza vaccine is also recommended for pregnant women and young children. We also encourage healthcare workers to get vaccinated as they are more exposed to the virus in their professional practice and they are less likely to infect their patients when vaccinated.
Thank you, Sylvie. That was Science in 5 today. Until next time then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stick with science.
Time now for the Business Report with Danita Rodney.
Minister of Finance and the Public Service, Dr. Nigel Clark, has announced that the government will increase the use of shared services across the public sector as it seeks to increase efficiency and cost saving.
Going into this year, the next fiscal year, which begins tomorrow, we intend to establish a permanent shared services department where that shared services department will deliver shared services to the public service. Very exciting development in Jamaica's sort of trajectory. And we'll begin to pilot shared services in another area.
Speaking at the launch of the public sector debate competition, Dr. Clark said last fiscal year, the administration piloted the sharing of some job functions across ministries, departments, and agencies.
You know about GovNet, the project to link all ministries, departments, and agencies with fiber cables, right? By linking them, what you end up with is a government intranet or platform that allows information to be shared seamlessly across and for communication. Well, I'm told that I think we have 90 MDAs that are now on the GovNet platform, which is a major, major success and achievement.
Now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Monday, April 3, the US dollar sold for an average of $152.22. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $113.89. The pound sterling traded for $188.42, and the euro sold for an average of $166.93. In JSE trading, the JSE index declined by 8,768 points. The junior market index declined by 128 points. The combined market index declined by 9,364 points, and the All Jamaican Composite Index declined by 12,007 points. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 125 stocks, of which 35 advanced, 53 declined, and 37 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited, and Caribbean Cement Company Limited. Stocks declined for Access Financial Services Limited, AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, and Barita Investments Limited. Trading firm were Caribbean Producers Jamaica Limited, Edufocal Limited, and EPI 7.50% preference shares due 2024. The overall volume leaders were Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited with over 6 million units, Fosterage Company Limited, and QWI Investments Limited with over 4 million units. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, Calypso Macro Index Fund posted 55 shares. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, Cliff Shepherd and Company Limited was the volume leader with 20,000 shares. They were followed by Goddard Enterprises Limited with over 2,000 shares, and First Caribbean International Bank, which traded 500 shares. In regional business, the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago says there are signs that inflation is relenting. More in this report.
In the Monetary Policy Report for March, the Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee says domestic inflation moderated in January, with headline inflation decelerating by 0.4 points in January compared to December 2022, while core inflation dropped by 0.6 points. However, the central bank notes food inflation remains unchanged, with price increases noted on fish, bread, and cereals. The central bank says the outlook for 2023 looks favorable, barring major external shocks, as estimated growth in 2022 stood at around 2.5%. The MPC says it has agreed to maintain the repo rate at 3.50%.
In international business, Wall Street saw a mixed close, with the S&P 500 ending higher, while Tesla stumbled after its electric vehicle deliveries for the first quarter disappointed investors.
U.S. stocks ended mixed on Monday, with the S&P 500 getting a boost from energy stocks following the surprise decision by OPEC Plus to cut the group's oil output. The Dow climbed roughly 1%, the S&P gained about 0.4%, while the Nasdaq dropped roughly 0.25%. The move by OPEC Plus drove oil prices up more than 6% Monday for their biggest daily gain in nearly a year, and could push the price of oil toward $100 a barrel. That added to inflation worries, which could complicate the Federal Reserve's monetary tightening campaign, says Anna Rathbun, Chief Investment Officer at CBIZ Investment Advisory Services.
So the OPEC Plus decision to cut output of oil for more than 1 million barrels per day, that is in anticipation of a downturn that is perhaps spurred on by the Federal Reserve's decision to raise rates very quickly through last year and so far into this year. Now, the irony is that such action may be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So higher oil prices complicate the current issue of sticky inflation right now.
The unexpected cuts also caused the S&P 500 energy sector index to surge nearly 5%. Chevron, ExxonMobil, and Occidental Petroleum all rallied more than 4%. Shares of United Health Group rallied on better-than-proposed Medicare Advantage rates for 2024. And finally, shares of Tesla dropped more than 6% after the EV maker said March quarter deliveries rose just 4% from the previous quarter, even after CEO Elon Musk slashed car prices in January to boost demand.
In market data for oil prices rose after OPEC Plus plans to cut more production jolted markets the previous day, with investors' attention shifting to demand trends and the impact of higher prices on the global economy. Brent crude futures were up 43 cents to $85.36 a barrel, and West Texas Intermediate crude futures were trading at $80.89 a barrel, up 47 cents. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney.
In regional news, we start with Barbados. The use of media and technology will be the forefront to push the message of Child Abuse Awareness Month. Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs, Kirk Humphrey, believes the more aware people are, the more it will be reported. And Director of the Child Care Board, Roseanne Richards, spoke about some of the special activities to mark the month.
Even with greater hope, the more likely we are to take cases to court and actually win some. And invariably, I think that is where the ministry has to go, that is where Child Care Board has to go. We have to take these cases to court, we have to be able to win them. And that requires a whole of nation approach. It requires individuals, when they know it's happening, to report it. It requires, of course, the police to take the case. The length of time sometimes cases take in court. When I was an officer at the Child Care Board, it had always concerned me that an incident could occur when a child is pretty much a baby and not be tried until the person is fairly grown.
We're also going to have a radio drama that would be addressing child abuse in all its forms, and it will be aired, I think, during the GIS Government Information Service program, but we're hoping to put it on one of the radio stations that would be giving a lot of coverage to young people, possibly one of the VOB stations or the CBC stations. We're still working on that, but the radio drama would be on. We're also going to be having a youth seminar, and the topic would be, don't reach for a weapon, reach for a solution. And I think we're going to put that during Child Month because we can't do everything during April, but that particular activity should come off in May.
The My Child Helpline app will be running an online dance competition via the social media platform Instagram. The competition is open to children ages 8 to 11 and over. $2,500 in cash and prizes will be awarded to participants. So the stipulations of the competition are as follows. The participants are required to upload a dance to the app Jingle, which will be on the app's Instagram page. Competitors can be individuals or groups and must include their country's flag in the dance video.
In Guyana, cervical cancer has remained the most prevalent cancer among women in the country over the years, and the Minister of Health, Dr. Frank Anthony, says it can be eliminated if more persons take the human papillomavirus vaccine.
Cervical cancer is something that is totally preventable. It is preventable. So we can eliminate cervical cancer from Guyana. And you might ask how? And the simple answer is that there is a vaccine that is available. It's called HPV vaccine. And if you get that vaccine, it prevents the development of cervical cancer. We started giving all these vaccines, but what we noticed is that a lot of people not coming to take the vaccine. The second most prevalent cancer among women, we can prevent that from happening. It is that simple. Just get the vaccine and you prevent this from happening.
The Bahamas is expected to surpass its record-setting cruise ship arrival this year, beating out the more than 5 million cruise ship visitors in 2019 and 2022. Here's more in this report.
Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism Chester Cooper making the comments as he led a delegation of top tourism executives to Sea Trade Cruise Global Conference, which is the world's largest cruise industry. The conference was held in Fort Lauderdale.
So yes, cruise is important. 5.4 million tourist arrival by cruise. In 2019, this was a phenomenal record-setting year. We've matched that now in 2022 numbers, and we expect to beat it by at least 20% in 2023.
Cooper says the numbers will be even more robust once the new multi-million-dollar cruise port opens in May.
At the end of May, we'll see the opening of our $300 million cruise port. The Bahamas has been instrumental in terms of reopening the cruise industry after COVID. We harbored many ships in our waters during the COVID period. We have a very strong ship registry for cruise lines.
In international news, the case against former U.S. President Donald Trump in New York is just one of several investigations swirling around the former president, and it may not even be the most damaging. Al Jazeera's John Hendron reports.
The indictment of Donald Trump is historic, unprecedented, and just the tip of a legal iceberg. The New York charges, reportedly 30 of them, are expected to be detailed on Tuesday, focused on a $130,000 hush money payment to a porn star during the 2016 presidential campaign.
We do know it centers around, a legal, very common confidentiality agreement that was signed years and years ago with Stormy Daniels and between her attorneys and Michael Cohen.
But the New York case is likely not the most dangerous for the former president.
Compared to the other investigations, which include efforts to overthrow or overturn the 2020 election, the New York case seems to be the least serious of them all.
In Georgia, a grand jury has recommended indictments for multiple people over interference in Georgia's 2020 election. It's not clear Trump is among them, but legal experts say this conversation between Trump and Georgia's Secretary of State amounts to a smoking gun.
I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have.
The jury forewoman offered this murky but tantalizing tidbit.
There are certainly names that you would recognize, yes.
Another legal threat? Special counsel Jack Smith's probe of Trump's handling of classified documents. Last summer, the FBI seized more than 100 of them from Trump's Florida home after he refused requests to turn them over. Smith is also investigating Trump's actions during the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol.
Trump has dismissed all the investigations as partisan witch hunts, but until the New York indictment, the man known as Teflon Don has faced real repercussions only at the ballot box.
A Northwestern University psychologist says Trump's risk-taking, even amoral, qualities are key to his popularity.
Here's this beast out there doing it for me, going out there fighting for me, saying what I feel deep down, and that's attractive. I mean, he may be a narcissist, he may be a sociopath, but he's my narcissist, my sociopath.
Whether that approach works in court might well be tested again and again. John Hendron, Al Jazeera, New York.
Russia takes the rotating presidency of the United Nations Security Council this April, as President Vladimir Putin faces an arrest warrant from the International Court for War Crimes in Ukraine.
Vasily Nebenzia, Russia's ambassador to the United Nations, on the first working day of his country's presidency of the UN Security Council. Since 1946, the presidency has rotated among the 15 members. April is Russia's turn. But the Council is the body in the international system that governs global peace and security, and there's been uproar, particularly in Western countries, that Russia, which invaded its neighbour and whose president faces an arrest warrant from the International Criminal Court, now holds the prominent role.
We expect that they will behave professionally, but we also expect that they will use their seat to spread disinformation and to promote their own agenda as it relates to Ukraine.
This was the Russian ambassador's response.
Some countries are pretending they can decide at their own will who they want or do not want to be in the chair of the presidency of the Security Council. As long as the current world order with the UN and the Security Council stands, there will be no change in the rules of procedure.
Those rules, though, do give the president the option to recuse themselves during the discussion of items they're directly involved in and to temporarily hand the presidency to the next country in alphabetical order.
So if the issue of Ukraine comes up this month, there's the provision for you then to hand the presidency for that subject over to Switzerland.
No. No.
Why not?
If you put the question this way, then I think a few other countries that are on the Security Council should also withdraw from that discussion.
The programme that Russia has prepared for the Security Council this month is relatively light, but the controversy is likely to grow towards the end of the month when the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov comes to New York to chair the council. James Bays, Al Jazeera at the United Nations.
And that's it for the news on PBCJ. Thanks so much for watching.